Hey everyone, welcome to Hand Rolled Real Estate. I'm Robbie. I'm here with Jay, and you've caught us in the middle of a three-part series where we're just talking about how you can invest in rental properties. And right now, today, I think we're going to be talking about short-term rentals.
Yeah, welcome everybody. I'm Junaid Noor. This is a three-part series. The title or the main title being um, you should invest in properties in 2025. Which rental properties you should invest in 2025. And the first part of the series was in the previous episode, which was we talked about single-family residential homes. Now we're going to talk about short-term rentals, otherwise known as Airbnbs. And then finally, we'll conclude the next episode with multifamily.
Yeah, the short-term rentals, fairly new to the real estate game, really kind of exploded on the market, and I think initially it was all unicorns and rainbows, and then eventually reality set in, and everybody realized this is just like a normal business, right? It has its pitfalls, and it has the traps and things you got to be careful of, and things kind of changed. It grew so quickly that it took some of the municipalities, some of the HOAs a minute to catch up, and maybe kind of dampen some of the bright lights from short-term rentals.
Yeah, short-term rentals just picked up because uh, people realize that in certain areas, on certain short-term rentals, on certain houses or single-family homes that they owned or condos that they owned, they can make a whole lot more money on a short-term rental than do a month-to-month lease.
Yeah, it allows some of these investors to be on the top of the market, pay a little bit more for these properties because they're not just buying a home or a property, they're buying a business. And it really in today's market, it made them a really strong force in the real estate world.
So we're going to go through how to purchase short-term rentals in 2025. And what we're going to do is we're going to go through three different aspects of short-term rentals. The first is the evaluation and setup. The second is the operations. And then we'll talk about some pitfalls that, our listeners should be aware of when they're getting into short-term rentals. So let's go ahead and start with evaluation because that's pretty similar to single-family homes.
You're a big you love due diligence, as I do too, and as with any real estate investment, you really have to get in and do your due diligence, and they each have specific things that you really need to be on the lookout for, and with short-term rentals, you've got to make sure that that demand is there, and you know relying on some local real estate agents and relying on professionals in the area can really make it easier. Those guys really have a leg up when it comes to these short-term rentals and where these locations are.
Yeah, so with short-term rentals, the first step is obviously to locate a property just like you would in a single-family residential. Figure out what the budget is going to be to try to bring the property up to date for purposes of short-term rental. Um, and then go ahead and figure out what the short-term rental is going to bring in. And one of the ways we do that is there are several companies out there. One of them that I use is called AirDNA. AirDNA will give you an online feasibility of how much rent your short-term rental can bring in uh, based on other Airbnb properties in the area and based on your actual address. So that's the starting point, the feasibility. And if you go back and watch our video on how to do the feasibility for a single family residential home, we went through all of that. So we're not going to go through that again. But what we will do is we'll just go through the additional items that you need to worry about for short-term rentals.
Right. After you've found a property that you like and you've done the numbers and they work, now you look at the physical property itself and try to understand what's going to make this unit stand out from other Airbnbs or VRBOs. What's going to get this property rented? And, the setup is a big part of that. And, how many bedrooms to bathrooms? How, what number, what capacity are you looking for? What's the big number? Is it six occupants? Is it eight occupants? And just try to understand that when you're setting this property up. some very small things can set you apart. I mean, Nashville, for instance, you look at a lot of the Airbnbs there, and there's a lot of social media opportunities within these properties. And, I think that all goes along with how you set these up and, how successful you can be in sticking out in getting those rentals.
Yeah, and an additional item that people need to remember with Airbnb properties is that you have additional costs that you wouldn't have in your single family residential. Um, you're going to pay for electricity, you're going to pay for water, you're going to pay for decorations, right? The AirDNA report does a good job of showing you what kind of rent the other properties bring in based on pictures. So based on what they look like and based on how many beds they have available. And there's some art to it, right? You can't get a 3 bedroom and put in, sleeping for 8 people. It's not going to work. People are going to come in, they'll be disappointed, and you won't get the revenue that you think you're going to get. So you have to keep in mind, other than the normal budget items for single family residential, for short-term residential you need to be prepared for decorations, plates, silverware, games, videos. You're going to have TVs in rooms. You're going to have couches. You're going to have all kinds of furniture because you want to make it an environment kind of like a home, right? People are paying that kind of money because they want to feel at home. They want to have everything available to them that they would normally have available at home, but not necessarily available in a hotel room.
No, exactly. And when you're considering the setup cost, you can't forget about the things that are never going to go away. You're going to have taxes. You're going to have utilities. You may even have an HOA due in the cost, and just make sure you understand what those are and try to really nail down what you can spend in the setup, and make sure all the numbers work.
And also, people should remember that if they're getting a loan on the property, there's going to be a mortgage payment. And so they need to take that into account. And actually, Robbie, I actually put together a worksheet, an Excel spreadsheet for short-term rental properties, which helps you evaluate, based on the Air DNA report, based on the cost of the property, the the cost of repairing the property and staging the property, how much money you're going to make. And if people go to our website at albanyparkcapital.com and register over there and send us an email, we'll be happy to send you that worksheet.
After you've evaluated your property and the cost work, everything looks good. You've got it set up. Now you have operations. Now you jump in and now this house is a business, and you have to take steps to make sure that you're successful.
Yeah, and this is where a lot of people don't understand the difference between leasing a house for a year as a single family rental versus Airbnb. When you lease the house, yeah, you're going to get some complaints from your tenants here and there. Things are not working. Okay, we'll get somebody to go out there and fix it, or I'll come there fix it myself. But with short-term rental, you have two aspects. One is the property itself. Then you have the business of getting people in and getting people out. And also remember that, you know, people don't necessarily have large deposits with Airbnb. So they may wind up causing more damage to your house. One of the things that short-term rentals, if you're getting into short-term rentals, you need to do is you need to have a crew. You need to have a crew of people available to come in, make repairs, and fix things, whether after your existing occupants have left or during. We were in a short-term rental one time in California, and the Wi-Fi stopped working. We called the owner, and she sent somebody within an hour, and they came in, they fixed the Wi-Fi. And Wi-Fi in this day and age is very, very important to everybody, right? Especially if you're going to be there. A friend of mine was in the Dominican Republic, and he was hanging out there for 2 months at an Airbnb, and he was just like, I work from there. If I don't have Wi-Fi, I can't work from there. So those kinds of things become very, very crucial. And for somebody to come in and fix those things right away, and for you to have somebody on standby is very important.
One of the things that we've talked about a bunch with single family rentals and other rental properties is you as a investor, you need to decide how much time do I have to invest in this property, and you need to make some decisions like, hey, I'm going to handle everything, or you know what, I'm going to be okay with hiring a property management company with the understanding that I'm going to lose 10 to 12% on every one of these transactions.
Yeah, because one of the things of running the business of the Airbnb is maintaining the guest schedule, right? So some of these property management companies that are out there, they'll charge 10 to 12%, but they will have your Airbnb or your short-term rental out on all the sites. They will maintain the schedules. They will make sure that the codes on the locks get changed as soon as the previous occupant leaves. They will make sure the maid service comes in and cleans up. They will make sure even that all the repairs are done. Of course, you'll pay for the repairs, but they'll have a crew that'll that'll be on standby. Actually, one of my friends does this management for Airbnb, and he actually has a group of people which will go on to Craigslist and find all the furniture you need, and they will stage it all for you as well.
Jay, you've got several people that have had some pretty good success in the short-term rentals. Is there a magic number when maybe, I have one, I have two, and I can take care of these myself? Do they ever talk to you about, well, you know what, I did this, and when I got to five, I needed a property management company, or I got to 10 and I need a property management? Is there a magic number?
It just depends. Again, it goes back to how much time versus money. If you have a full-time job, even managing one short-term rental can be a problem. But one of my friends, well, what he did was when he got to five, he just basically opened up his own management company, and then he started managing other people's properties in order to get economies of scale. Most people can't do that, and lots of the short-term rental owners that I have seen, it's either the husband's working full time or the wife is working full time, and then the other person is managing the property, or they hand it off to a realtor because again, it's a full-time job. It is a business. People don't seem to understand that. It is not just I've rented my property out and I have to just make sure that my rent comes in once a month and once in a while if I have any complaints, I send a plumber out there who gets out there in 2 or 3 days and the tenants are okay with it. This is, the short-term renter may only have the property for 3 days. They're not going to wait 3 days for a clogged toilet. Somebody's got to go out there right away. Otherwise, they're going to demand their money back.
Yeah, I mean, potentially you could have a new tenant every 3 or 4 days. I think very quickly it turns into a full-time job, and I think you either have to have that time or be sure and factor in the money for a property management company. And that being said, it's like everything in business. Nothing is really easy, and there's going to be some pitfalls along the way. What do you see as the biggest pitfalls or hindrances that would maybe catch somebody off guard, like a new investor?
So yeah, short-term rentals are not all unicorns and rainbows, and so now we're talking about the pitfalls. One of the biggest pitfall is your rating as a landlord on these social media sites, and your rating will make or break you. And we do a lot of short-term rentals whenever we go out of town. There's five of us, and wherever we have gone, we've done short-term rentals. And we'll look at the ratings, we'll read the reviews, and a couple of bad reviews, we don't want to go there because, oh, we feel like we're spending that kind of money, um, then and we're only going to be there for 3 nights or 4 nights or even a week. Um, there's so many other properties out there. Why bother?
Yeah, you've got a a bunch of five-star ratings ahead of you. You're going to have to do something to fix those ratings and in order to get back in line and get those properties rented up. It's um it's crucial to that environment. I mean, the same for us when we travel and we're looking at Airbnbs. I mean, we rely heavily on the reviews, and if somebody has a bad review, whether it be a one-time incident or something that's reoccurring, I mean, you just kind of push those guys to the back of the list.
Yeah, and one of the things that I do look at, especially if you're a new owner of an Airbnb, you're not going to have a lot of reviews. If somebody provides a bad review, I look to see what the owner's response is. And if the owner responded with, I'm so sorry, we could have done better, we'll give you an extra night, try us again, and the owner is really trying to receive the business, then I'll give them a shot. If the owner comes back and says, yeah, well, you were a sucky tenant and you did this and you did that, I don't like that. I'm the customer, I'm paying, I need service.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The proprietor. Oh wait, is it what is it? The proprietor, right? Yeah, yeah. Okay, sorry. Yeah, really, the proprietor of the property can reach out, try to make amends if there was an issue, whether it's his fault or not. Uh, you have a customer there, and a lot of times the customer is always right, and you kind of do the best you can to appease them. And I agree with you. If they have an issue and they've reached out and resolved it and got a positive, response from the customer, I mean, it makes it way more, uh, way easier to book that property, even in spite of a bad review.
Another pitfall that investors who are thinking of going into short-term rentals should look out for is the climate, the environment that you're in. So, for example, a lot of HOAs are starting to not allow short-term rentals. You're also getting some cities that are passing regulations not allowing short-term rentals. Um, and then the other thing, there's always that X factor, right? The pandemic really killed short-term rentals, and you have to be able to have enough money because you still have a mortgage to pay, you still have property taxes to pay. You have to have enough money to ride some of these things out. Um, if another pandemic happens, what are you going to do with a longer term leased tenant? They're in the property. They're in the property. Yes, some people lost their jobs and couldn't pay their rent. But for the most part, most people didn't have that problem.
Yeah, I mean, I think the short-term rentals came on the scenes really, really hot and heavy. Some of the HOAs and municipalities are definitely catching up. They have unhappy residents. They have unhappy, even hotels, in the hospitality business. They're unhappy with some of the Airbnbs and their lack of taxation for visitor taxes and such. And so some of those things are going to change, and you could be caught up in that environment. I know, for instance, there was a lot of pushback in Phoenix, and there was a lot of groups that got hurt in Phoenix that had initially invested in the Airbnbs. I'm not familiar with that exactly what happened there, but I know that there are going to be some changes. Protect yourself the best you can when it comes to the location of your properties. Really understand the HOAs and the local rules, and make sure you're in compliance and protect it in the future as well.
Yeah, that's very important. Make sure you know your rules and regulations. And just like one of our friends, she manages an apartment complex, and turned out somebody was trying to put one of the leased apartments that they had as a short-term rental. Most leases will clearly say you cannot do that, and so make sure that you're in compliance. Make sure that the other thing is to make sure that the tenants that are coming in, or the renters that are coming in, are they also have reviews, and there's some type of understanding or screening that you have done. Now, I know Airbnb doesn't have a lot of screening. When we did single family residential homes, we did background checks, and the background checks would show us any issues they had with their previous properties, where if they didn't pay rent or anything like that. You don't necessarily get that with short-term rentals. So some of the things that the short-term rental proprietors, the owners, do is they'll rent for a minimum of 3 nights because they were having too many problems with a group of people coming in, renting the Airbnb for one night, just having a party, trashing the place, and the deposit is not covering the amount of damage they caused.
With all that being said, I mean, there's definitely some upside to the short-term rentals. There's definitely some pitfalls. For me personally, I feel uneasy about these municipalities and regulations that are coming, right? You have these people in these subdivisions with HOAs, and they have 8 or 10 Airbnbs in their subdivisions, and they're unhappy. And these are going to get squeezed out. I think, for me, I don't. I wouldn't feel comfortable getting into the short term until I think there's a little bit better, understanding. There's a lot of people that have spent a lot of time and they probably understand. I know Nashville, they actually have permits with the city, right? And you're protected and you're safe. I would probably feel safe in that environment, but I'm a big proponent of being localized. And I'm here in Houston, Texas, and for me, the I don't think there's a huge potential for Airbnbs in Houston. However, there's a lot of people that have had a lot of success in it.
No, absolutely. There's quite a bit of money, but there's a lot of learning curve. And again, I would strongly recommend that our listeners work with somebody who is actually doing Airbnbs before they just go out and start on their own. The first one, if you don't have any experience, you might wind up losing a lot of money. Um, and so, we went through the evaluation and setup, which is very similar to single family residential, with the added costs of staging the house, or staging the property, with decorations and appliances and things like that. We went through the operations, make sure people understand that once you have the property, it's not a passive check that's coming in, it is an active business. And then we went through the pitfalls, right? What to be aware of, buyer beware, and the issues that people are facing nowadays with short-term rentals. So there are some risks involved, but you have to go through, you have to plan, you have to make sure that you have mitigated all of your risks, and then go forward.
Well, I'm really glad y'all joined us today. Like I said earlier when we started the podcast, we're in the middle of a three-part series. Our next episode is going to be multifamily.
Thank you for joining us, everybody. Look out for the conclusion of our three-part series in where to invest in real estate in 2025. We covered single-family residential. We covered short-term rental. We're going to cover multifamily. There's a lot of articles that we have on our website, www.albanyparkcapital.com. Just go over there, hit the resources tab, and there's a lot of free information for everybody.
Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.